was there last week, you would have like paid money for storms. It was so hot. But at 41 years old, I had a life epiphany. Your bagels are legit. I'm not even a bagel person. I got New York City bagels. I'm now a believer on bagels. So thank you, New York. You've done it. Milwaukee Brewers, they're coming in to take on the Mets. I would eat bagels at a baseball game. You got to like scour out the middle. Well, that would be a bummer, and like put some stuff in it. This could be like a ballpark food item. Chance of showers and thunderstorms tomorrow. I think the best chance will be towards like the 9 o'clock hour. So getting towards like the last third of the game. Those baseball games, they move much quicker now that we've got the clock on the pitchers. Thunderstorms though likely starting in the afternoon, and you can see they are kind of hit or miss at first and then really filling in by about 8, 9, 10 o'clock. So higher chances the later in the evening you get. So I think like kids games and practices should be okay. It's the mid to late evening stuff, the later night plans, the professional leagues that could be affected by some of those showers and thunderstorms. All right, then we look at the Lehigh Valley, Philadelphia area, parts of Jersey, including Central and South Jersey. We're off to a quiet start tomorrow morning, but by the afternoon, once again, showers and thunderstorms. They'll be moving in from places like Pottstown into the Lehigh Valley. Things really blow up, though, as we get towards the mid-evening, probably 7, 8 o'clock. You can see a lot more orange and red on the map. So that's indicative of some of those downpours, as well as some of the thunderstorms. So gusty winds would be what I'd be most concerned about. And some rain sticks with us into the Wednesday morning time frame. All right, Baltimore, Washington, D.C. We're watching thunderstorms out there today. We've got more opportunities tomorrow afternoon. So hit or miss through the early to mid part of the afternoon, but by late afternoon, it's a mess on the radar. And Dr. Nab will be watching all those, big time roadways like the Beltway, like I-81 in Western Virginia for problems thanks to the rain.
Oh, I know.
All right, well, we are here with our expert, Dr. Rick Nab, of course, keeping an eye on what's been happening off the southeast coast, but also looking back at this time of year, that early to mid part of July, and other storms that may or may not have formed in the same area that we're watching this week.
Yeah, it's one thing to look at what the forecasts are, what the models are showing, but you want to look at climatology. Where do things tend to form this time of year? You want to look at past history. And in early July, this is the zone we tend to look at, especially east of Florida. So a 20% shot in the first week of July from a front dangling in this area is not a shock. So I wouldn't be surprised to see those numbers go up. Look at where Barry formed over the weekend. And look at you just go 10 days later, how the focus shifts to that southeast coast. So the pattern is so common to lay down a front off the southeast coast this time of year that you can't be shocked when this is going to happen. And here are those past storms. So I would look back 100 years, all the storms that went through this area in the first week of July. And there's been some recent ones, and a lot of people might think, well, if something tries to form right off the southeast coast, it doesn't have time to become a hurricane. Oh, contraire, 2014, Arthur made landfall as a Cat 2 in North Carolina because this was the strongest hurricane to make landfall in the U.S. without taking any lives in years, decades. So the strongest part of it was offshore, and it didn't come anywhere but over the Outer Banks and the Sounds. And then we had Colin a couple of years ago, but people barely remember that because it was so small. So those are two opposite sides of the spectrum of what could come from a front dangling off the southeast coast. Now, I mentioned Alberto because it didn't form from a front, but it was the northeastern Gulf trough levels of Alberto in southwest Georgia, but it's one of the hazards we have to look out for.
People at home might be going, what is it about fronts? Usually we think of fronts as a trigger for severe weather. So what is it about these dangling fronts that make them so prone for tropical systems?
Well, they have built-in spin, and we'll see that in the models because ahead of the front, winds are coming out of the south, behind the front, they come out of the north, and you tend to have a wind shift, and then the fronts off the southeast coast do their thing right over the Gulf Stream. So you get any kind of spin to get any thunderstorms going over the Gulf Stream, then you can get a slow transition into a tropical system. But it all begins in the Great Lakes. It's hard to imagine that a tropical system would originate in the Great Lakes, but it's that big trough coming eastward. Now, again, good front, bad front. Good front for all the people that are going to be behind it for the holiday weekend. But look at all of those colors over Florida northeastward. That's the built-in spin of the front. And then look what happens starting Thursday and especially into Friday in the Euro. Look at all those colors between Florida and Bermuda and North Carolina. That zone in those greens, that's the spin emanating from what was a dying front.
The Hurricane Center has kind of Florida in the center, and there could be formation in the Gulf side or the Atlantic side. But you showed, though, over the last 100 years, all the formations up front have been on the Atlantic side.
Yeah, and that I think is the more likely scenario if something's going to develop. I'll show you the GFS in a bit because the GFS has a low forming over northern Florida. It doesn't spend much time over water. But I think it's harder for something to get going in the northeastern Gulf in this scenario just because so much of the frontal energy will be off to the east. But I think if you're in Florida, I think you actually want to root for this to form because if it forms, then you don't have as much of a low like the GFS suggests over Florida. It might be a rainier scenario if it doesn't form because like look at the Euro with all of the low pressure and the rain offshore, it's going to be a lopsided system. You might get more rain if it forms east of Florida. But the front will still bring rain no matter what.
Right. So what if somebody's watching, they're like, I got my beach house this week. What are my problem days and what should I be most concerned about here?
Well, the problems start in northern Florida on Wednesday. And then again, because that low, even if the low sets up shop to the east, the front is going to be hanging around no matter what. So we don't know if there's going to be a tropical system, but we know there's going to be a front. So the biggest problem is going to be rain-induced flooding and disruptions to your beach day and your theme park day in central to northern Florida.
We just have to wait to see how strong it is if it forms, if we have any coastal issues.
Yeah, it's way too early to know because remember, we could get a little Colin, we could get a hurricane like Arthur. So it's a little too early to talk intensity, but we know that rain is going to be a problem.
Day-by-day forecast. Thanks for staying with us, everyone. I'm Mike Bettis.
I'm Alex Wilson, not an expert, but we've got the guy to break it all down for us. I feel like I'm an expert in some things, just not hurricanes.
Was there ever guilt, like when you were at the Hurricane Center forecasting, was there ever guilt, like, oh no, like holiday and I got to forecast something?
Oh, I've always felt kind of bad for putting out bad forecasts for certain people. But on the other hand, it's like the baseball player on the field. You don't want to be standing on the field thinking, oh, I hope they don't hit it to me. You want the ball to come to you so you can help your team, all right? And we're going to help folks out by getting ready for what is probably going to be bad weather in Florida for late this week and the weekend. That's nearly baked in because there's going to be a front.
I would love for you to make that over the fence leaping catch and like shut it out. It thinks it's going to do something and then Nab's got it.
Well, there is. I love your optimism.
Thank you.
All right? And there is a scenario in which most of the spin along that front hangs out offshore, and if it's lopsided, all the rain is east of Florida. That's a possibility, but I don't know, front's coming to Florida in July. It's going to rain.
Well, if that happens, we're all buying Nab jerseys.
Yeah.
Just saying.
I'm going to have to autograph it, too.
Yeah, me too. I'm going to put that thing. Well, first I'm going to wear it for a little bit, then I'll put it on eBay.
Ooh, game worn.
Yeah.
But it does stink that this is a possibility right over the holiday weekend.
It does, for sure.
A view of New York City, yet another spot that'll be watching for rain showers, thunderstorms. So you go from a view that looks like this, some blue sky, to one that is going to bring you thunderstorms. Heavy rain. Maybe coming sideways when you get those gusty winds in there. Downpours on the streets. It always leaves that questionable water, right? You're like, don't stand in that after the storm because it's got a little bit of everything in it. The Mets, they are hosting the Milwaukee Brewers tomorrow at 7:10. Now, this is going to be kind of prime time for showers and thunderstorms. I think late afternoon, evening, into the late evening hours brings our best chances for storms. So be aware of that if you are headed to the game. You know, just kind of have in the back of your mind, we could be up against some thunderstorm chances and perhaps even a rain delay. Here's the future radar. You'll see what I mean. Most of the day is on the quieter side, even the mid-afternoon. I think 3, 4, 5, generally quieter. But once we get to dinner time and beyond, shower and thunderstorm chances really start to dramatically go up. Some more of those oranges and reds on the future radar, which would indicate the thunderstorms or at least the heavy rain. Some showers linger into your Wednesday morning, but obviously the intensity really begins to back off. Southeast PA into parts of Jersey. We've got shower and thunderstorm chances also picking up later on Tuesday. So by mid-afternoon, I think you've got a few hit or miss showers and storms, but from the Lehigh Valley to Philly over into the beaches of New Jersey, it is going to be a mid to late evening threat with much more coverage out there on the radar. Wednesday morning, like New York, I think we'll at least watch for some light rain showers to linger for that drive. Dr. Nab, maybe for some folks, like the last day of their week. It's almost corn season. Excited, July 4th, and then beyond. It's
I feel like
it's corn time.
When I was a kid, like growing up in Ohio, they used to say like knee high by the 4th of July, but I always felt like it was like at least waist high, if not higher.
Because I feel like you're eating it by then, right?
Because like a month later, you're harvesting.
Yeah. Oh, you can pick some off, and you're like, I'm testing them. It's not ready. This stinks. Well, you shouldn't have picked it that early.
I learned the hard way when I was a kid the difference between like sweet corn and field corn.
Yeah.
When the field across
like the decorative corn,
the stuff across the street was for the cows.
deer
It wasn't for humans.
You were like, this is awful.
like,
what are we even doing?
Yeah.
Well, these are the important life lessons we learn.
I'm Mike Bettis.
I'm Alex Wilson. It sounds so much less satisfying when you say it after Dr. Nab. You're like, the former director of the National Hurricane Center.
These two
and then
idiots.
Us.
Yeah. Sorry. We like balance, though.
Yeah.
I don't think these two realize what an honor it is for me to work with them. This is
He's like, because they made me look so good.
Yeah, right? We're going to give this $5 later. And yeah, it's like an absolute, like...
Well, in some strange cosmic way, we make an amazing team.
Somehow, some way, we make it work.
We orbit you, Dad. You're the sun.
Well, I'm going to take a little bit of blame for not bringing a front to northern Florida with a chance of development.
Definitely your fault.
And some random Tuesday in the middle of June would have been better than during a holiday weekend,
Totally.
right?
We didn't do it. He did it.
But, look, first week of June, off the southeast coast, along an old front. This has happened many times before, as we will summarize, so this is not a surprise.
Right.
And you know the rules in Florida. In July, fronts can come to Florida. They cannot go through Florida.
Yes. I
So
feel
it
like
will
that was
rain.
an Eagle song.
It will rain no matter what.
All right, so we're going to talk details about that with Dr. Nab coming. So let's start there in Florida and show you what's
We're
going
going to be watching it for you, but I know you beaches, that seems to be the spots where they like to coagulate. New York City also seeing some shower and thunderstorm chances, not just today, but in the coming days. Tomorrow, virtual view goes from one filled with sunshine to one with a lot of rain. Dark skies, lightning, even wind-blown rain. Tomorrow, we're watching for that. Citi Field, the Mets are hosting the Brewers, and thunderstorm chances are likely from about dinner time through the evening. Game time is 7:10, and you can see we've got thunderstorm chances likely throughout the period. Here's New York City timing for you. Tomorrow morning, dry. Midday, dry. Even the afternoon commute, fairly dry. I think a few hit-or-miss thunderstorms, but it's like 7 and beyond that the thunderstorm chances drastically increase. We'll see heavy downpours along with those thunderstorms. So don't be surprised. I mean, don't give up on it, but be aware of the risk that Mets game may have some weather impacts. Into Wednesday morning, still dealing with at least some light rain. Now, Philadelphia area, you've got light rain showers to start the day tomorrow. They're pretty hit or miss, though. So a lot of areas wake up to a quiet Tuesday. Tuesday afternoon, different story for you. Showers and thunderstorms become more and more likely the closer we get to dinner time and beyond. So 6, 7, 8 o'clock. You've got the thunderstorms for parts of southeast PA, for parts of Jersey, northern Delaware as well. And showers still possible into Wednesday morning, although it should be lighter. But that drive for you, maybe your last day of work for the week, you'll be up against some wet weather. Washington, D.C. and Baltimore. Tomorrow, dry start to the day. But like today, we've got showers and thunderstorms likely for the afternoon and evening. I'd say as early as 4 or 5 o'clock, we could start to see more action, especially there across western parts of Virginia and Maryland. Washington, D.C., 7, 8, 9 could be especially active for you. Dr. Nab?
Well, Alex, I think
5+ inches in just a few hours. So it's a mess out there. This is Weather Unfiltered. He's Mike Bettis. I'm Alex Wilson. Dr. Nab in the house as well.
Well, the radar's going to be lit up tonight, no doubt about that. And we may do it all.
All right, well, welcome back into Weather Unfiltered. We are closely watching an area around Florida. This is the time of year we'd watch for this, Dr. Nab. But I know going into the holiday, a lot of people are like, but wait. But this is not necessarily uncommon.
No, in fact, when you look at the forecasts, you put them in the context of climatology and history, and you realize that off the southeast coast in early July is a fairly common occurrence to at least have the threat of something developing, and we've had plenty of actual systems in this area. And look at what happens as we leave June and go into July. Instead of the southwestern Gulf being the hot spot, which it was over this weekend with short-lived Barry, the southeast coast becomes the problem spot. And most of the early July systems that have formed there. So not a surprise that we're dealing with this. But let's look at specific storms in history that formed in this area in early July. And you probably don't remember 3 years ago. Remember Tropical Storm Colin? It was about this big, and it was along the South Carolina coast. It barely qualified as a tropical storm. So that was the low end of what can happen. The high end of what can happen was 2014, when Arthur formed from a front over the Gulf Stream off the southeast coast, eventually a hurricane to not take any direct deaths. And Cat 1 winds were on land. The Cat 2 winds, I think, stayed over water. But it shows you that even though it doesn't look like there'd be much time for something to become that strong when it forms right on our doorstep, it can. And then the other storm I think we need to remind ourselves about that occurred in this general area this time of year was Alberto, 1994. Now, that formed from a tropical wave, not a front. But if we do get something to form in the, what's the common thread between all these past systems? Water.
Yeah.
You know, so that's what most concerns me about what could happen if something were to form in this zone. But we do have the makings already coming together, because that system we've been talking about in the Great Lakes and the Northeast, that front is going to come down and lay a front right over the Gulf Stream that is even warmer than it was in 2014.
Yeah, and you pointed out, I think people go, well, wait, I think fronts are supposed to be, something that brings us thunderstorms or cooler weather, but the fronts come with that inherent spin.
Yeah, well, they do all of the above, right? They're going to bring cooler weather to the Midwest.
For everybody else.
They're going to bring, right. They're going to bring storms to Florida no matter what. But it's the spin. And this map shows you the white lines, the upper level pattern, but the colors are the built-in spin along that front that's leaving the East Coast. But look what happens right after the 4th of July, according to the Euro model, that more concentrated area of spin starts to show up southeast of the southeast coast, and it meanders around. Now, ironically, this scenario could end up doing us some favors. If it forms offshore and it's sheared and it's lopsided, maybe it takes most of the rain away from land. Not all of it, but maybe a good bit of it.
Yeah, a lopsided system would do us some favors, especially if you're the one who's rented the beach house. It's always the week you rent the beach house that it's going to pour.
Yeah, if it were to stay offshore. Now, the negative of it forming, this is a little closer look at that Euro forecast, is if it were to form off the southeast coast, there's no telling what direction it could go, because this is where Arthur formed, and it came north, and you saw what happened in North Carolina. It had some strong winds in eastern Canada, so it just might be good for Florida if it forms off to the east there. But even in the Euro's eye, all the rain is offshore, but you still get a lot of rain in Florida just from the front.
The Hurricane Center's area that they're watching is on both sides of Florida, the Gulf Coast side and the Atlantic side. Do you think if something forms, it's more likely to form on the Atlantic side then?
I think it's more likely, but it's not impossible, because there will be some energy from that front dangling across Florida into the northeastern Gulf. And if it meanders over Florida, northern Florida, like the GFS says, could it get into the Gulf and form? But even if it doesn't form into a depression or storm, if the low meanders over northern Florida, that could actually be rainier for them than if it were to form and be offshore. So if you don't want a lot of rain in central northern Florida, you want this thing doing all of its action offshore. But the GFS says it could happen right on top of us.
Yeah, and it feels like there's a lot of possible outcomes. Is there a point that you'd feel like we'd be more confident? I know a lot of people are going into their holiday weekend going like, all right, well, when am I going to kind of know what I'm up against?
I don't think we're going to have a really good handle on it until the front gets out over the Gulf Stream, and to see where the spin and the thunderstorms are already off to a start. And that would be at earliest Wednesday, might take into Thursday. But either way, we do need to be planning for disruptions in central northern Florida and the southeastern states, just because of the positioning of the front.
Do you think there's possibilities here? I guess it depends on how strong it gets and exactly where it goes. That we might have, coastal flood issues. You think that's a problem?
Oh, it's absolutely a possibility. Even if it's a non-tropical low sitting offshore and just on its east side, you have the constant flow for 3 days into the coastline. That could happen in the northeastern Gulf. That could happen along the Carolinas coast, and it could be onshore.
For Dr. Rick Knapp, right here on Weather Unfiltered. Thanks for joining us. I'm Mike Bettis.
I'm Alex Wilson. You're going to be watching this through the week. Could at the very least bring quite a bit of rain to parts of Florida, even the southeast beaches.
Yeah, this is baked in. The rain that's going to be enhanced in central and northern Florida by this front. The front's coming, and it's going to be sitting over Florida. Yeah. That we know. The 20% has to do with whether or not we get a tropical or hybrid depression or storm to form from the built-in spin of that front to maybe enhance the rainfall and other impacts. So you still, regardless of whether or not this forms or not, you got to plan for disruptions to your holiday activities and your travel late this week and this weekend.
Yeah, for sure. It's probably not the headline you want to hear heading into the holiday. We're going to dig into all the details and bring you some specifics because now that you know the headline, you want some more details. Let's start, though, about the storm.
New York City, one of the spots we watch tomorrow for those thunderstorms. May see some sunshine through the morning, early afternoon. You're thinking, this is great. I'm going to the Mets game, and then this happens. Expect much more in the way of cloud cover, those dark skies, and then the heavy rain and gusty winds in addition to lightning. So Mets game, it's going to be a problem one, I think, tomorrow. Queens, the location, the Brewers are in town. We've got 7:10 game time, and through that entire period, good opportunity for rain showers and for thunderstorms. So New York, you're going to be a spot to watch through the second half of the day, especially I'd say dinner time and beyond, that 6, 7, 8, 9 time frame. You can see a lot of red and orange on the map, so the heavy rain, the thunderstorms most likely during that period. Now Wednesday morning, still the possibility of some showers out there. I think it will overall be lighter, more scattered, but still could see some rain for your Wednesday morning drive. In the Philly area, very similar forecast for you guys tomorrow. I'd say midday into the early to mid-afternoon, things are good. By about 4 o'clock, we start to see a few hit or miss thunderstorms. Things much more active through the late dinner time period, like the 6, 7, 8, 9 o'clock hour. Beaches, Jersey Shore, Delaware beaches, keep that in mind. Later in the day could bring better chances for showers and storms. And then even Wednesday morning, you're making your way to work, Blue Route, Schuylkill Expressway, Northeast Extension, East-West Turnpike, all could see some wet weather. We look at Washington, D.C. and Baltimore. Very similar forecast. Quieter early in the day. By the afternoon, now showers and thunderstorms more likely, bringing with it heavy rain chances and severe chances. I don't think we're looking at, overwhelming opportunities, but like today, some of these storms could bring us gusty winds. Moving into Wednesday morning, still some light rain shower chances possible. Could even see a rumble of thunder down into parts of the mid-Atlantic to start the day on Wednesday. Dr. Knapp? All state, so the odds of things like that happening are lower, and it's good. I don't want you to talk about me.
But you're on the scoreboard now.
Now you are.
No reports of any, injuries or anything like that, so we can say that. But
yeah.
There are a lot of places where you wouldn't want to be this year because the tornadoes have been off the charts.
Yeah.
So Delaware, consider yourself lucky.
Yeah, enjoy that one, right? Welcome back into Weather Unfiltered on this Monday. I'm Alex Wilson here with Mike Bettis, Dr. Knapp in the house too.
All right, lots of severe storms. We had them.